Google is restricting Android sideloading in a way. Your Word documents will now be saved in the cloud by default unless you opt out. Bluesky is now blocked in Mississippi, and more. Welcome to Surveillance Report 239, where we are dedicated to keeping you private and secure with the latest news from the past week. I am Nathan from The New Oil, and Henry will be back hopefully next week. But you know who is here this week is our sponsor, EasyOptOuts. For those who don't know, EasyOptOuts is a data removal service, and they're one of our favorites. They are extremely affordable at only $20 a year, and cancellation is easy. If you're not satisfied, they do offer refunds. However, we think you will be satisfied because Consumer Reports and Privacy Guides have both done research and found them to be pretty effective at their claims. They are also now recommended as one of New York Times Wirecutter's top picks for a data removal service. They ask for very minimal information. They're only asking for information that is publicly available to make sure they find your record and remove the right one. And right now, there's only 2 employees, the founders, so they're not sharing your data with a lot of other employees or third-party contractors. There are no ads or analytics on the platform. They only submit removal requests if they find your data. So a lot of these other data removal tools, they just spam everybody and say, hey, take down this person's data. So even if the company doesn't have your data, now they do. EasyOptOuts make sure that they find your data first and then request a takedown the way that a normal person would. They focus on publicly accessible people search sites, but they are constantly adding new sites over time, and they do have business plans. So if you are in a position at your company where you can suggest perks to offer to employees, definitely check them out. We also have a quick PSA. The Q&As are starting to get a little bit long. Some of that is our fault. We've had a really busy summer and we haven't always been as consistent as we'd like to be. The Q&A was never meant to be these like full-length segments. And also when we have long Q&As like that, it really adds a lot to our recording time. We're going to try to limit them a little bit more and make them a little bit more consistent because some weeks we have tons of questions, some weeks we barely have any. Right now, our plan is we're going to cap it at 10 total questions. If more than 10 people ask questions, we will do 1 question per patron because some of you guys ask multiple questions. You are totally welcome to ask your question again on another week. That's always been the policy. For patrons, if you guys feel like this is unfair or you see any other scaling issues down the road, definitely let us know. Those of you who have been here with us for a long time know that we are constantly reevaluating how we do things and we're updating things. And if there's a better way to do it, we're totally open to it. We definitely want to make sure our patrons feel like they're getting their money's worth. Thank you guys for your understanding and your support. On to our highlight story. So if you guys follow tech news in general, and especially privacy and security news, you've probably already heard this one. This is a pretty big story this week. Google wants to make sideloading Android apps, quote unquote, safer by verifying developers' identities. I put the quote unquote there. So the article we're quoting from comes from Android Authority, just to kind of give you a little bit of context on where the bias is coming from. But you can find tons of really good reporting from Ars Technica, I think Bleeping Computer, I think maybe even TechCrunch might have covered this. Again, this really made the rounds this week, so there's lots of different perspectives to take this from. Quoting Android Authority, there are some nifty tools that aren't available on the Play Store because their developers don't want to deal with Google's approval or verification requirements. This is understandable for hobbyist developers who simply want to share something cool or useful without the burden of shedding their anonymity or committing to user support. Unfortunately, malicious developers take advantage of this openness and hide behind a curtain of anonymity when distributing malware. To combat this, Google is introducing a major change that pulls back that curtain, making it harder for malicious actors to distribute harmful apps. Today, Google announced it is introducing a new developer verification requirement for all apps installed on Android devices, regardless of source. The company wants to verify the identity of all developers who distribute apps on Android, even if those apps aren't on the Play Store. Only users with certified Android devices, meaning those that ship with the Play Store, Play Services, and other Google Mobile Services apps, will block apps from unverified developers from being installed. Google says it will only verify the identity of developers, not check on the contents of their apps or origin. However, it's worth noting that the Google Play Protect, which is the malware scanning service integrated into the Play Store, already scans all installed apps regardless of where they came from. Google likens this new requirement to ID checks at the airport, which verify the identity of travelers but not whether they're carrying anything dangerous. Like the Google Play Console, the Android Developer Console will ask developers to provide their legal name, address, email, and phone number. Organizations will additionally need to provide their website and a DUNS number. On Google Play, this information is shown to users on the Play Store listings, but Google told Android Authority that the information developers provide to Google through Android Developer Console will not be surfaced to users. Many hobbyist and student developers already complain about this requirement on Google Play, as it essentially forces them to reveal their personal information unless they set up a business address, so it's good to see that Android won't dox them. Google says it understands the needs of hobbyist and student developers are different from commercial developers and is therefore creating a separate type of Android Developer Console account for them. This separate account type will have fewer verification requirements and won't require the $25 USD registration fee that is otherwise required. Developers only need to create a separate Android developer console account if they don't plan on distributing any of their apps on Google Play. Developers with existing Google Play console accounts can use them to register their non-Play apps and signing keys. This new requirement won't go into effect immediately, but will be implemented in phases. An early access program will open in October of 2025, allowing developers to participate in discussions, receive priority support, and offer feedback. The program will then open to all developers in March 2026, a full 6 months before the requirements begin. The requirements will first go into effect in September 2026 for users in Brazil, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand. Google is targeting these regions for the initial rollout as they're, quote, specifically impacted by fraudulent app scams often committed by repeat perpetrators. A global rollout is planned to continue through 2027. This will certainly upset some privacy-conscious developers who don't want to submit their personal information to Google, and it will also alarm some users who worry that Google is locking down Android too much. Still, with Google's own analysis finding 50 times more malware from internet sideloaded sources than from the Play Store, it's hard to argue this change won't do some good. However, the true effectiveness of the new requirements won't be known until they are fully implemented. And multiple articles I've seen said that Google hasn't detailed specifics on how they plan to enforce this. Given that it only works on devices with Play services, I think it's a safe assumption that this would be some kind of scanning and verification. So the article mentioned how there's already Google Play Protect, which scans everything on your device, not just things that come from the Play Store. So they'd probably use that same thing or something very similar when you're trying to install. And it would contact that, it would contact Google services. That would be my guess, but that's just an educated guess. Where to begin with this? So first of all, I'm seeing a lot of misunderstandings about this. Google is not getting rid of sideloading. I want to make that very clear. Google is still going to allow things like F-Droid, a Crescent, direct APKs. That is not going away. And in fact, for the end user, this really has no impact. I've seen several articles that specifically mention for devices that don't have Google Play services like Calyx, for example, or Lineage, it just doesn't matter. They're just not going to check it. You can still install it. There just won't be any sort of like verification checks. If the Play services aren't there, how are they going to stop you from installing something? However, do not mistake that for me saying that I don't think this is a big deal. This is really unfortunate. Like, first of all, I'm already seeing holes in this. Like, there's going to be a separate account for hobbyists and, it has fewer verification requirements. So my first thought with that is this going to be like Apple, where technically in Europe, they do allow sideloading in alternative stores, but they also made the requirements so onerous and difficult that like nobody in the right mind would want to deal with that stuff. And I didn't include it here, but there was actually a story this week about how they removed an app from a third-party app store, showing that they still ultimately have control over everything on iPhone, which is kind of anti-competitive in my opinion, but I'm not a lawyer, so I'll let the lawyers duke that one out. What are the requirements for that? And furthermore, how are they going to prevent that from getting abused? Like, how are they going to stop a whole bunch of malware developers from signing up with these fewer requirements and then just abusing that to spread more malware? I also wonder what's going to stop, like, criminals by definition, we say this all the time, do not follow laws. So, like, what's to stop criminals from using fake IDs, making up identities? Like, I understand they have to upload ID or whatever, but we're talking about a global thing. Every ID looks a little bit different. Like, surely there's got to be a way to fake them or get fake IDs. And like, if we're talking about a malicious app that gets millions of downloads, the data collected from that has to be more valuable than the money you would spend getting a fake ID. I also would be curious to know exactly how effective this will be because, the article notes Google already has that Play Protect that scans everything. So like, I don't really care where the app comes from. The question is the app legitimate? And does it do what it says? And is it malicious? It's kind of hard to put this into words. I wish Henry was here. He's usually pretty good at rewording things in a way that works better. But Henry and I always encourage getting things from trusted sources, not necessarily because there's anything magical about the source. Trusted apps and sources can still make mistakes. They can still put out something that's insecure by accident, not intentionally, or they could do it intentionally. Like, there's nothing technically stopping them. It's just that we know who these people are and we trust them to be legitimate. So verifying who somebody is doesn't necessarily keep them from putting out a legitimate app. I mean, in theory, it's designed to stop them from doing it again, but I would much rather Google, if they're going to be invasive like this, I would rather them focus on the content of the app and making sure the app is not doing anything malicious. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm trying to say there. I think this is going to impact the developers the hardest. And I think, unfortunately, we are going to see some developers become less active because they don't want to deal with this. And even though it says like Google's not going to dox them, it won't publicly publish that information. I think for most people, it's probably a relatively low threat model thing. Okay, but now they have to hand over keys to Google. Again, for the end user, this doesn't really mean much because most people are already using stock Android. They're already going to get that security check. This is probably not going to be as effective as they hope it will. And I wish they would find another way to address this problem. This is really just kind of an overreach from Google, in our opinion. And it's really taking away everything that made Android so appealing. Like, not just this, but across the board, everything Google's been doing lately with not publishing the device trees and requiring, this verification API and now this. And it's like, and Nick mentions this on the Linux experiment as well. Google used to be open, and they used to say, like, we can find that balance between security and open, and we can make them work together. But now they're turning into Apple, where it's like, no, everything has to be locked down. Everything has to be verified. You have to play by our rules. And it's really, really unfortunate, and I don't like it. And for those curious on Henry's thoughts, and the reason why I'm comfortable speaking for him this week is because Henry just put out a video about this over on the Techlore channel. If you want more information on this story specifically, or you want Henry's take on it, definitely head over there and watch that. I think that's kind of the news for now. That's kind of the recap. That's kind of my take. I think we will leave that one there for this week. Needless to say, we will keep you updated on how things develop with this, and that's all I got. With that, we'll move into our data breaches, and we're going to start with Doge, who uploaded a live copy of Social Security database to vulnerable cloud server, according to a whistleblower. So this whistleblower is Charles Borges, the Social Security Administration's chief data officer, and in a newly released whistleblower complaint published on Tuesday, which other top agency officials have signed off on, he said there was a decision in June to upload a live copy of the country's Social Security information in a cloud environment that circumvents oversight. The database, known as the Numerical Identification System, contains more than 450 million records containing all the data submitted as part of the Social Security application, including the applicant's name, place of birth, citizenship, and the Social Security numbers of their family members, as well as other sensitive personal and financial information. Borges said that Doge, the team of former Elon Musk employees appointed to government under the pretense of reducing fraud and waste, copied the sensitive database to an agency-run Amazon cloud hosting server, quote, apparently lacking in independent security controls, unquote, such as who was accessing the data and how they were using it. The lack of security protections violated internal agency security controls and federal privacy laws, the complaint alleges, and Borges warned in the complaint that if this information were compromised, it is possible that sensitive, personally identifiable information on every American, including health diagnoses, income levels, and banking information, family relationships, and personal biographic data could be publicly exposed and shared widely, unquote. PayPal breach exposed nearly 16 million login credentials. So a dataset allegedly containing 15.8 million PayPal credentials, including login emails and plain text passwords, was posted on a popular data leak forum. Attackers claim that the data is recent. Meanwhile, PayPal denies the breach. Quote, there has been no data breach. This is related to an incident in 2022 and is not new, unquote. That was from a PayPal representative. Interestingly, the supposedly massive data dump is sold for an amount that hardly matches the attacker's claims. This could point to the actual quality of the alleged data. Next up, TransUnion suffers a data breach impacting over 4.4 million people. So this was a result of Salesforce. For those who don't know, TransUnion is one of the three major credit bureaus in the United States, alongside Equifax and Experian. It operates in 30 countries, employs 13,000 staff, and has an annual revenue of $3 billion. It collects and maintains credit information on over 1 billion consumers worldwide, with approximately 200 million of those based in the US. This information is shared with 65,000 businesses, including lenders, insurers, and employers. A sample of the stolen data shared with Bleeping Computer contains quite a lot of sensitive personal information, including names, billing addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, dates of birth, and unredacted social security numbers of TransUnion customers. The data also includes the reason for the customer transactions, such as requesting a free credit report. In addition to customer data, the threat actors also claim to have stolen customer support tickets and messages that were stored in Salesforce. We had quite a number of data breaches this week, so I'm going to do that thing where we just rapid fire the last handful of them. A lot of the time when we have a lot of data breaches, we try to pick the top 3 or 4 that probably impact the most people, and then just kind of rapid fire the last ones so this podcast doesn't get crazy long. So Farmers Insurance data breach impacts 1.1 million people after Salesforce attack. Health Services Group data breach impacts 624,000 people. I don't know how to pronounce this. Auchan, Auchan, retailer data breach impacts hundreds of thousands of customers. MATLAB dev says that ransomware gang stole data of 10,000 people. And security researcher maps hundreds of Tesla Mate servers spilling Tesla vehicle data. So if you work with any of those organizations or you have a Tesla Mate server or anything like that, definitely check those stories out and get more details. And now we'll move into the company stories, and we're going to start with Microsoft, who will start saving Word documents in the cloud automatically on Windows going forward. Quoting the article, Microsoft Word users have several options when it comes to saving their documents, from local saves to storing documents on network shares or an integrated cloud service such as Microsoft OneDrive. Autosave and Auto Recover were introduced several years ago by Microsoft in Office products to enable cloud saving and restoration. Microsoft announced that it is changing the default save location for Word documents on Windows. Anything new you create will be saved automatically to OneDrive or your preferred cloud destination, writes Raul Munoz, product manager at Microsoft on the Office Shared Services and Experiences team. Munoz backs up the decision with a half dozen advantages for saving documents to the cloud, from never losing progress and access anywhere to easy collaboration and increased security and compliance. While cloud saving is without a doubt beneficial in some cases, Munoz fails to address the elephant in the room. Some users may not want that their documents are stored in the cloud. There are good reasons for that, including privacy. Word customers who do not want their documents to be saved to the cloud by default need to become active to change the default save location, and then there are steps in the article. Anthropic will start training its AI models on user data, including new chat transcripts and coding sessions, unless users choose to opt out. It's also extending its data retention policy to 5 years, again for users that don't opt out. All users will have to make a decision by September 28th. For users that click Accept Now, Anthropic will immediately begin training its model on their data and keeping said data for up to 5 years, according to a blog post published by Anthropic on Thursday. The setting applies to new or resumed chats and coding sessions. Even if you do agree to Anthropic training its AI models on your data, it won't do so with previous chats or coding sessions that you haven't resumed. But if you do continue an old chat or coding session, all bets are off. The updates apply to all of Claude's consumer subscription tiers, including Claude Free, Pro, and Max, including when they use Claude Code from accounts associated with those plans. But they don't apply to Anthropic's commercial usage tiers such as Claude Gov, Claude for Work, Claude for Education, or API use, including via third parties such as Amazon Bedrock and Google Cloud's Vertex AI. The pop-up that users will see reads in large letters updates to consumer terms and policies, and the lines below it say, an update to our consumer terms and privacy policy will take effect on September 28th. You can accept the updated terms today. There's a big black accept button at the bottom. In smaller print below that, a few lines say, allow the use of your chats and coding sessions to train and improve Anthropic AI models, with a toggle on-off switch next to it. It's automatically set to on. Ostensibly, many users will immediately click the large accept button without changing the toggle switch, even if they haven't read it. Consumers can change their decision anytime via their privacy settings, but that new decision will just apply to future data. You can't take back the data that the system has already been trained on. Flock wants to partner with consumer dashcam company that takes trillions of images a month. So for those just joining us, Flock is a surveillance company with automatic license plate reader cameras in thousands of communities across the US, and they are looking to integrate with a company that makes AI-powered dash cams placed inside of people's personal cars, according to multiple sources. The move could significantly increase the amount of data available to Flock, and in turn, its law enforcement customers, because Flock works with a lot of law enforcement agencies. Nexar, the dashcam company, already publishes a live interactive map of photos taken from its dashcams around the US in what the company describes as, quote, crowdsourced vision, showing the company is willing to leverage data beyond individual consumers using the cameras to protect themselves in the event of an accident. Faces and license plates are blurred in that public-facing map. Customers such as fleet managers, autonomous vehicle companies, or public agencies can then pay Nexar for access to the data. Nexar's website says that its data is sourced from 700,000 vehicles. Nexar sells a variety of dashcams for a few $100s each, according to its website. Those cameras can provide a front, cabin, and rear view, and in some cases provide clear license plate capture with full HD video. The cameras also record the vehicle's precise GPS location. Nexar markets the dashcams to casual drivers, long-distance drivers, commuters, and rideshare drivers. At the moment, Flock's business is based on stationary cameras that communities or law enforcement agencies purchase and have installed in their neighborhoods. It's not clear how exactly any use of Nexar data by Flock would work, both in a technical and legal sense. Some states have laws restricting the use of ALPRs, for example. Other ALPR companies have used dashcams to collect license plate data for years. Digital Recognition Network, or DRN, for example, is a private company that crowdsources license plate data through cameras installed on vehicles of repo men. DRN's sister company is Vigilant Solutions, a law enforcement contractor that sells the same technology to the government. Okay, no research stories came across my desk this week, so we're going to go into politics. First up, the Department of Justice has subpoenaed patient information in transgender care investigation. So the subpoena to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, sent in June and first reported by the Washington Post, requests, quote, every writing or record of whatever type, unquote, from doctors related to provision of hormone therapy, puberty blockers, and gender transition surgery to minors, including voicemails, emails, and text messages on encrypted platforms from January 2020, more than a year before Arkansas adopted the nation's first ban on gender-affirming care youth in April 2021. The request also calls for documents relating to each minor patient's clinical indications, diagnoses, or assessments, quote, that form the basis for prescribing puberty blockers or hormone therapy, as well as documentation on informed consent, patient intake, and authorization from a parent or guardian for their child to receive transition care. The subpoena also requested personnel files, training manuals, billing records, insurance information, and communications between hospital staff and pharmaceutical manufacturers and sales representatives of drugs used to treat gender dysphoria in minors. Next up, Bluesky blocks service in Mississippi over age assurance law. So in a blog post published on Friday, the company explains that as a small team, it doesn't have the resources to make the substantial technical changes this type of law would require, and it raised concerns about the law's broad scope and privacy implications. Mississippi's HB 1126 requires platforms to introduce age verification for all users before they can access social networks like Bluesky. Instead of requiring age verification before users could access age-restricted content, this law requires age verification of all users. Bluesky also stresses that the law goes beyond child safety as intended and would create, quote, significant barriers that limit free speech and disproportionately harm smaller platforms and emerging technologies, unquote. To comply, Bluesky would have to collect and store sensitive information from all its users, in addition to the detailed tracking of minors. This is different from how it's expected to comply with other age verifications, such as the UK's Online Safety Act, which only requires age checks for certain content and features. The company's blog post notes that its decision only applies to the Bluesky app built on the AT protocol. Other apps may approach the decision differently. So this story is actually a couple weeks old. Revived anti-ad blocking lawsuit puts users' rights and the internet's future at risk. It's basically like how we got here, and that's the section I'm going to quote because they summed it up really well. So the beginning, which is 2015, Axel Springer, one of Germany's largest publishers, began a legal campaign to ban Adblock Plus, arguing that it harmed their business model and violated competition law. 2018 outcome. In April of 2018, Germany's Federal Court of Justice rejected Springer's claims, ruling that ad blocking is legal. Shift in strategy. Springer then pivoted to copyright law, claiming that modifying the DOM/CSSOM structures created by a browser to render a web page amounts to altering a computer program and therefore infringes copyright. 2022 ruling. The Hamburg Regional Court dismissed this claim. 2023 ruling. The Hamburg Higher Regional Court also rejected it, holding that ad blocking does not interfere with programming code. However, July 31st, 2025, Germany's Federal Court of Justice revived Axel Springer's lawsuit against Adblock Plus and sent the case back to the lower court. The judges argued that earlier courts did not sufficiently analyze the technical aspects of how browsers and extensions work. The lower court must now re-examine whether ad blocking constitutes a copyright violation. This is not unique to ad blockers. This mechanism is used by countless other extensions, such as accessibility tools that change fonts for dyslexic readers, dark mode extensions that invert colors, translation tools that replace original text with another language, password managers that inject login fields, and more. If the courts rule out that modifying DOM equals copyright infringement, it would threaten the very foundation of the browser extension ecosystem. In other words, any tool that enhances the user experience could suddenly become illegal. And last but not least, this one's a quick update. FBI warns Chinese hacking campaign has expanded, reaching 80 countries. The FBI and other law enforcement and intelligence agencies around the world warned Wednesday that a Chinese government hacking campaign that previously penetrated 9 U.S. telecommunications companies has expanded into other industries and regions, striking at least 200 American organizations and 80 countries. This is Salt Typhoon. We've covered them extensively. For those just joining us, Salt Typhoon was a Chinese government hacking group that used a quote-unquote legitimate backdoor for law enforcement access into American telecommunications, and they used it to basically monitor all U.S. communications and basically spy on Americans. Next up, we have the free and open source software section, or FOSS. We have just 2 stories this week, one from Proton and one from Tuda. We'll start with Proton, and it says, prepare for the unexpected with emergency access for your Proton account. With our new emergency access feature, you can grant permission to trusted contacts to securely access your Proton account after a set period of time, ensuring nothing important is lost if you're unable to enter your account due to death or illness. If you have a paid Proton plan, you can follow our emergency access steps to choose your emergency contacts right now. With emergency access, you can choose up to 5 trusted contacts who can gain access to your account either immediately or after a custom wait time you set in advance, ranging from days to months. Your trusted contacts will also need to have a Proton account to gain access. If a trusted contact requests access to your account during the wait time, you can approve it immediately or deny the request. If you do nothing, the request will automatically be approved after the designated waiting time. You can revoke access or modify your emergency contacts anytime. Once granted, your trusted contacts will be able to securely access your Proton data, including emails, passwords, and files. It is only available to paid users. And then next up, we have Tuda, who has introduced key verification. The key verification in Tuda needs to be done by you. Key verification works best when you're physically together with your contact or when you can authenticate each other through a trusted channel. Once you've verified each other's public key verification code, you can be confident that every message you send is safe from interception. Quick interjection here. For those who don't know, key verification, this is what Signal does with their safety number kind of thing, the QR code that you scan. Key verification is basically a way of ensuring that your communication with that person is secure, there is no man in the middle, and if it ever changes, Signal or Tuda or whoever they'll let you know, and then you can either choose to send it anyways because maybe hey, they got a new phone, I know this is them, or you can pause and be like, hold up, why did it change? And this is just an extra step to make sure that the channel you're trusted is secure, is not being tampered with, and is end-to-end encrypted. You can verify one's public key in one of 2 ways. A, you can scan a QR code with the app, or B, you can enter your recipient's email address and compare the verification code with one that is displayed in the other's key verification settings. Once verified, the Tuda client will make sure the key matches the one you've saved as verified before sending messages. Key verification is optional, but we highly recommend that you verify your contact's keys. If you choose not to verify a contact's keys, Tuda will use the concept of trust on first use, which is basically, we're going to assume the key is good to go. If it changes, we'll let you know, but otherwise, we're assuming we're good. We did not have any misfits this week. It was actually kind of a short week, and I'm very grateful because, again, we've traveled a lot this week, and I'm so very tired. So that's all we have for this week. Google is restricting Android sideloading. Asterisk. For end users, this isn't really a huge deal, but it's still another step of encroachment from Google, and we're still not a fan of it, even if right now it's not bad. We don't know what this could enable further down the road. Your Word documents will now be saved in the cloud by default unless you opt out. So if you are a Word user, first of all, check out something like LibreOffice. It's really user-friendly, actually, and they're improving it all the time. It's looking really good. If you have to use Word for whatever reason, make sure you check that. Make sure it's set to where you want it to save. Bluesky is now blocked in Mississippi. Again, please shift the narrative. Stop blaming Bluesky for being decentralized, at least for now. We can blame them for that later. Let's focus on Mississippi and why are they doing this and what possessed them to think this is a good idea. And a few more stories. You know what is a good idea, though, is taking advantage of excellent low-cost services like EasyOptOuts. EasyOptOuts is a data removal service. So a lot of you guys know, especially in places like America, if you search your information online, like a phone number, an address, or even a name, if your name is unique enough, you'll find dozens of websites that publish all of that information online. And it's really easy to figure out where you live, your phone number, your family members, all that kind of stuff. EasyOptOuts is a very easy and helpful way to eliminate the vast majority of that data. It is super affordable. It's only $20 a year. If you are not satisfied with it, that's fine. They will cancel and refund you. However, again, we think you will be pretty satisfied. Consumer Reports and Privacy Guides both did some research, found that it was really effective. New York Times Wirecutter is now also recommending it as a top pick for a data removal service. They only ask for publicly available information. You don't have to give them any information that isn't already out there. They're just using it to try and make sure they find the right profile. There's only 2 employees. They're not sharing your data with tons of other employees or third-party contractors. There are no ads or analytics on the platform. They only submit a removal request if they find your data. Again, a lot of these other removal services, they just spam everybody and say, hey, get rid of this person's data. And it's like, well, we didn't have their data, but now we do, thanks. EasyOptOuts goes and finds your data first and then submits a removal request the same way that a normal person would. They focus on publicly accessible people search sites, but they are constantly adding new sites over time. And they offer business plans for those of you who run businesses and want to offer perks to your employees. So thank you again for listening to the Surveillance Report. Links to all the stories can be found in the show notes. If you have a story that you think we missed and you want us to cover, please send it to news@surveillancereport.tech. We say all the time, this story came from a listener, so we do check that. And I know sometimes I miss them, but I really try my best. We check that email almost every day, except again for this week where I haven't logged in 3 days because I've been traveling so much. But yeah, we really do check that. If you have a story that you think we missed, please send us a link. So the final thing we want to ask, please share the podcast around. Make sure you are subscribed. Give us a rating if you're listening on a platform where that's an option. We're trying to reach as many people as possible, keep them updated and informed on the latest goings on in their privacy and how they can protect their privacy. It's an ever-evolving landscape, and every little thing you guys do helps us do that. So thank you again for listening, and hopefully both of us will be back next week.